Hey guys, Avengers Endgame was a lot of fun. Baby got back. But it was also very confusing.
We're gonna try our best to make sense of the time travel stuff that happened here.
None of this makes sense.
So Hulk said you can't change the present or the future because when you time travel, the past becomes your future,
Right.
or you can't change your own past.
Tilda Swinton shows up and makes like an infographic for us that explains that if you take an Infinity Stone out of the timeline because they create the flow of time, you're
the hell
gonna
does that mean?
create a doomed timeline.
What did Ant-Man say?
Oh, you gotta make out with your mom.
I think he said Back to the Future is bullshit,
Yes.
which means
I don't
do
agree.
make out with your teenage mom.
Yes, 100%.
Yes.
This is awkward.
This is the movie's theory of time travel, is that changing the past doesn't change
Right.
anything in the present that you have left. It creates a branch.
Yes.
Right.
It creates a different timeline
Correct.
where stuff happens. So we're gonna go over all that, and we have some props. We have Tony and Nebula together in space.
Right.
Yes.
We have Ant-Man is doing adventures and hijinks in the quantum realm. Clint is with his family on a farm.
Dad.
Yep, he's doing dad stuff.
For a couple of minutes, then it all goes really bad.
Captain Marvel starts in space. Then she comes down here.
For a bit.
She goes back to space. Thanos is at the garden
Yes.
having luscious farm-to-table meals. These people get into a spaceship and they go
To the garden.
to the garden where Thanos is.
Yeah.
They murder
And
him.
then they kill Thanos is dead now. They kill Thanos.
Yeah.
We won.
This is when gets wacky.
But Thanos
So if you-
broke all of them, so in theory there might be 6 timelines?
If you
And they're all
destroy
bad.
the stones, does
Right.
that create its own branches? We don't know. It's not in the movie.
Before we can go any further, we have to get Ant-Man back from the quantum realm.
Yes.
Right.
So Scott is stuck in the quantum realm.
Yes.
Where time passes differently. So this has been 5 years since Thanos was killed. But for Scott, it's been 5 hours, he said?
5 hours later.
The year is now 2023.
Yes.
And how is Ant-Man gonna come back, you ask? Clearly through science and like his own know-how. No, it is definitely by accident because a rat who we're going to pretend was Splinter from the Ninja Turtles.
Wandering the sewers, scavenging for whatever I could find.
Endgame is set in a pre-ooze world.
It was a very
Yes.
special rat. So the rat
Walked
Yes.
over something. Literally just walked over a button. And Scott says, wait a minute, I think I know how to do time travel, even though
Jesus.
I'm one of the dumbest people in the MCU.
Darby, could you just take care of this idiot? Thanks.
But Tony is smart and he figures it out
In about
shocking,
15 minutes after
with
dinner.
shocking
Yeah.
ease.
Yeah, I can fly.
So they send Clint back because he needs to test time travel, and he's also a murderer, so he doesn't care if he dies. And he is on his farm, and he picks up a baseball glove, and then he gets pulled back. But he still has the baseball glove.
So now he's created a
Branch. Timeline.
where his kid doesn't have a baseball glove.
Right.
We don't know what happens, but I'm pretty sure his kid becomes a supervillain.
Splinter is sadly no longer in the movie.
Splinter's not in the movie
Oh,
anymore.
bye, Splinter. I love
Sorry.
you.
They do time travel, okay?
Yes.
And they have an anchor location in 2023 in the original timeline. All of the Avengers that are still alive are
Plus
there, plus the glove.
Brody.
Each one of these teams goes on a separate time heist to a separate location in a separate year, and they all create a load of
Right.
branching timelines because they are the worst time travelers of all
Ever.
time.
It's perhaps the most irresponsible thing the Avengers have ever done, and they dropped a city.
He's saying it's our fault?
Scott and Tony and Steve, they're going to 2012 in the Battle of New York.
Remember that one?
You do, because they showed the same footage in Endgame.
Brody and Nebula.
Oh,
They go back to vintage Chris Pratt.
Did you print out a picture of Redbone, like I asked?
no.
To Morag,
Yes.
and they knock Burt Macklin out.
I'm with the FBI.
Cold. Which honestly, that right there creates the Splinter, because in the first Guardians of the movie,
Yes.
Morag was being, or no, Quill was being closely followed by
Korath.
Korath, the Pursuer,
Branch. Timeline.
because of the Korath problem.
Korath can no longer get Quill, which means that even if they put the Power Stone back where it came from, everything about Guardians of the Galaxy 1 is happening at least a couple hours later
Yes.
than it needs to be. So that could be catastrophic. I have seen those movies where, like the butterfly effect, where if you step on a flower, that's this. That just happened. New Clint and Nat go to Vormir. Where's Red Skull?
Oh, which is guarded by Red Skull for some reason.
The exact same scene that you saw in Infinity War. So if you didn't see that, you're seeing it right now.
Who did the tattoo?
That's a very good question that doesn't get addressed at all. Clint has clearly had a lot of tattoo work done while also traveling the world as a murderer for not
people.
for hire.
Is this important? We don't know.
Vormir is actually, all things considered, a pretty successful time travel trip.
Not all of us can fly.
Well, except for they kill Black Widow.
They do. They murder.
Which sucks.
They murder Black Widow, which has consequences in the future.
But that's not a branch.
It doesn't make a branch, correct?
So Thor and Rocket travel back to 2013, which we put that here.
They go and meet Natalie
And
Portman.
that puts them right smack dab in the middle of Thor: The Dark World, which in this instance is represented by Queen Amidala.
I move for a vote of no confidence.
Thor is really sad and he talks to his mom, but it doesn't create a branch because Frigga's really cool.
And also she died that day.
Yeah.
She's
So
so
like
cool.
whatever.
But she dies that day, but she also already knew because she was raised by witches, boy.
She's such a great
I
mom.
would like to point out, it is entirely possible there was some minor fracture of a timeline because Rocket is clearly chased away by Asgardian guards
But they
after
think he's a rabbit,
doing
so it's
something.
okay.
So it's fine. We have New York City. Hulk catches up with Tilda. As we can see, Tilda Swinton
New York.
is there. Scott and
Which
Tony
is
steal
the
the
cube.
Tesseract, okay?
Loki
Gets it.
gets the Tesseract and disappears into a portal with it.
Important to remember, this is Hitler Loki, not fun Ragnarok Loki.
Right.
This is
mean
not,
Loki.
this is the worst possible Loki. And also, let's be honest,
Timeline.
probably the one that the TV show is going to be about.
Yes, the Tesseract allows him to travel through space, not through time. So in theory, he's going to be jumping around 2012.
Yeah, he's stuck in
Forever.
2012. Steve is fun to talk about because Steve
Literally.
encounters himself and they have a whole fight. This creates multiple problems.
Because to fight himself, he has to tell himself that Bucky, who we found out is alive in Winter Soldier, is alive in 2012, which means that this Steve in 2012 now knows.
Where's
that
my man Bucky? I know we got a Bucky.
He's right here. I put him by Sebastian Stan.
What this means is Winter Soldier doesn't happen or happens
Correct.
differently.
Winter Soldier would not happen because Steve would go and find Bucky in 2012.
So
Which
Steve,
means Civil War doesn't happen.
Unlike Endgame Steve, Avengers 1 Steve
Actually cares about his friend.
still gave a shit about Bucky. Captain
Say
America,
goodbye.
the Winter Soldier, does not occur. Captain America, Civil War, does not occur.
Meanwhile, Steve and Tony up again
Yes.
because they lose the Tesseract. Remember that? Remember we were just talking about them losing the Tesseract?
Yep.
So they have to figure out a new Tesseract to find, which luckily Tony knows for whatever reason that they have another Tesseract at Camp Lahai, the place from the Winter Soldier, and that's where they go in 1970.
That's right.
We're going to MASH.
They're going to MASH.
1970. It's never clear how they get there.
It's never clear how they get there. It also
Steve and Tony can time travel just with the things on their...
right. The GPS on their wrist is also a time machine.
Which makes me
did not
wonder.
understand.
Which makes me wonder why they had to build that gigantic thing
Well,
at the headquarters.
so Robert Downey Jr. and his dad, they make up. They have a beautiful moment.
Who's the homeless person on the couch?
This is why I love coming over at Christmas.
This could potentially create its own branch because
timeline.
now his dad is going to be a better dad because he
Yes.
gave him good advice. So
Yes.
that could change the whole way that he's raised, and now the whole
and then
thing
maybe
doesn't
Tony
happen.
Stark isn't an asshole, and then
Yeah.
maybe Iron Man 1 doesn't happen.
But that's not
What else
enough
happens?
because also Steve decided to steal Pym particles.
Which means,
If anyone remembers Ant-Man,
why would you?
Hank left S.H.I.E.L.D. in 1989 because he thought they were stealing his Pym particle
And
and
he was
Ant-Man
right.
technology.
He was right.
And
he
he
was
was
right.
right.
He was right.
So what this means?
Oh, wait, maybe this isn't a timeline branch. Maybe that always happened.
No, well then, if
Oh,
this,
but it's 14,
19
it's like
years
19
later.
years
Yes.
earlier.
So
Okay.
this, in theory, he could leave 19 years earlier. He could leave S.H.I.E.L.D. that much earlier.
Right, if he quit S.H.I.E.L.D. in 1989 because he thinks they're stealing his Pym particles, but somebody actually steals his Pym particles in 1970,
Right.
He's definitely leaving.
he's
early.
quitting S.H.I.E.L.D. 19 years earlier.
Right.
Yellow Jacket, the villain of Ant-Man, never.
Right.
He's definitely not.
Doesn't
Doesn't
exist.
have a
He would be
degree.
too young to
So
become
Ant-Man doesn't
Hank's-
have to happen
yes.
at all. So Ant-Man, another Marvel film, done, canceled, get out of my life. We're going back to Morag. It's 2014 again, okay? Thanos. We have Gamora. We have Nebula.
Now, not the modern day versions of any of those characters. It is the 2014 versions of all of them.
Happy Nebula and Mean Nebula are in the same place at the same time. So this Nebula is very happy, except for when she gets kidnapped. And this Nebula is very mean.
Thanos in 2014 also has the children of Thanos.
Yes, he does.
Okay? Because they haven't been defeated in Infinity War because it's 2014. This is pre-Guardians 1 and Guardians 2. Those haven't happened yet because it's 2014. Gamora and Nebula still hanging out with Thanos. So this is at the very beginning of Guardians 1. So none of that has happened yet.
So in theory, Ronan, and remember Lee Pace from Captain Marvel? He doesn't have a mission or anything yet either.
They go
to 2023 Earth.
To 2023. Do we have a sticky for that?
I wrote it.
Yeah, it's right there.
I got a splinter on my shoe. They're on 2023 Earth. Now they're all together. This isn't supposed to happen.
Right.
Which means Guardians 1 doesn't happen. Guardians 2 doesn't happen.
No baby Groot.
There's no baby Groot at all. No teenage Groot, no any Groot.
But also,
Avengers Infinity War doesn't happen. Disney is very sad.
They have lost so many movies over these fractured timelines.
The Avengers unsnap. The other Avengers. Now all the Avengers are together in, oh God, no. All the Avengers are together in 2023. Wow. Captain Marvel shows up. She's not in space anymore. Now she's back on Earth at the Avengers headquarters.
For another 5 to 10 minutes.
Oh my God, out of breath.
We
the
win.
Avengers win.
Thanos, dead. Past Nebula, dead.
Nebula kills
Happy Nebula, very much alive. Gamora, we don't know where she goes.
She's somewhere.
And I am not some starry-eyed waif here to succumb to your pelvic sorcery.
However,
where'd Gamora go?
Children of Thanos, dead.
Where'd Gamora go?
She up there.
Gamora's up there. She kicks Peter Quill in the nuts,
yes,
and now he can't have
Twice.
kids. And who knows what that's gonna change.
I would like to point out in the middle of all this, we lost one noble soldier.
Yes.
I'm sorry,
Tony Stark.
Goodbye.
Tony Stark.
I love you.
Is dead.
In 2023, not in any of the other timelines.
Spoilers.
Disney's probably happy now.
Disney's happy, so Sad Mickey is dead. So there's one final problem that we need to address. Of Steve Rogers.
The villain of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
No, that's not true. Steve at the end of Avengers Endgame is tasked with taking the Infinity Stones.
All 6, including the one that is not a stone, that is plasma that he has to inject back into Natalie Portman, and the one that killed Nat that he can't give back.
Oh my God.
In theory, unless he resurrects Nat. But
if you
Nat
give the
doesn't
Soul
get
Stone
resurrected.
back, do you get Nat back?
And I knew it was coming, and I'm wiping tears away.
Why didn't we get to see Steve encountering his arch nemesis, the only character,
huge missed opportunity.
the only character in the MCU who really knows the Red Skull is the only one who doesn't get to meet him.
You don't give up, do you?
Steve goes back in time. Does he come back to 2023?
Yes.
No.
Yes, he
well,
does.
Kind of.
But
not directly.
No.
So what Steve does is he f***s up Peggy Carter's entire life.
If you liked that show, I'm so sorry, because in this
Agent Carter
timeline,
doesn't
it
exist
doesn't
anymore.
This doesn't exist. It's just Peggy dancing with Steve for 50 years.
For 50 years, while another Steve is under the ocean, frozen. This Steve is crying because he's underwater, and this Steve is sad because he kind of knows that what he did was messed up.
Frozen tears.
This Steve is on ice. This Steve is back in the past.
Married to Peggy.
He up Peggy's life. This creates a branch timeline.
Except somehow, and to quote the directors of the film, in an interview with Entertainment Weekly,
we have a quote about this. Maybe there's a story there. There's a lot of layers built into this movie, and we spent 3 years thinking through it, so it's fun to talk about and hopefully fill in the holes so people so they understand what we're thinking.
We don't understand what you're thinking.
Joe and Anthony, we don't understand what you're thinking.
This
because
is madness.
Steve grows old in a branched timeline where the events of Agent Carter, the TV show, and her entire life, including her whole family, doesn't happen. But
And
then
yet-
he gets old
and yet, as
he
a-
appears back here.
As an old man, he somehow comes back to. As an old man, he somehow comes back to this timeline.
This is the crux.
And then
And
he comes back with a shield.
a shield. Remember, Steve's shield got f***ed up in the final battle
Right.
with Thanos, so
And-
this is a different shield.
And in the branched timeline, his shield is still frozen unless the other Steve, the underwater Steve, came back and the 23 Steve showed up and knocked him out and then took the shield from him and then took that shield and time jumped to this timeline.
Whose shield is it?
To give it to Sam Wilson.
Why? Because friendship ended with Bucky now. Sam is Steve's best friend.
Now he's not. He doesn't even want to talk to him.
He doesn't
They're
even
done.
go.
Their
he doesn't
friendship
even-
is over.
It's done.
The implication of the Russos' quote is that there's a story of how Steve went into a different timeline where he changed history and then grew old and wound up back in the original timeline.
Also-
the explanation is not in the movie.
Important to note, old Steve did not use the quantum tunnel to come back. They hit the button and nothing happens. Instead, they look over.
He does not appear on the platform.
He just shows up.
So he took an Uber to the location, knowing exactly what time to show up for dramatic effect.
Doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense, sir.
Present day.
Spider-Man goes back to high school.
With
Who is there?
Ned,
best
the
friend,
center of the
Ned.
Marvel Universe.
Now we have to wonder, was Ned held back for
Is
5
Ned-
years?
Is Ned stupid?
Is Ned immortal? Was Ned snapped and also just really excited to see? Did you see that hug at the end? They show them reuniting, and it's very clearly, oh my God, where have you been for the last 5 years? I'm so happy
There's
you're
a
back.
quote about this as well. So Ned disappeared as well. Joe Russo told Entertainment Weekly. That is the two of them seeing each other for the first time after having disappeared.
But in their minds,
I would like to point out, yes,
they were only gone
It
for
was-
like 5 seconds.
For a day,
it was
maybe.
instantaneous.
Well, how long does it take to start up high school again?
I mean,
It might
I
have
mean,
been a few
no,
weeks.
but here's the thing: they're best friends. You tell me they wouldn't have seen each other outside of high
Linda
school?
Cardellini
Which
And
is
they
some
have-
bullshit.
texted Clint
She called him.
immediately.
Her
They
cell
have their
phone
phones
magically
on.
worked
They
after
have
5
their,
years.
They have their phones still. They've been chatting, or have they? Ned is the secret to it all.
Oh my God. Ned is a living Infinity Stone.
I give up.
Go watch Avengers, I guess.